What would you do if you found out your husband was living a double life? Would you ignore the signs, cling to the lie, and pretend everything was fine? Or would you dare to uncover the truth, no matter the cost? The men you trusted, your husband, your father, your brother, were all part of something so dark, so horrifying, that the truth itself was a curse. Once upon a time, in the village of Umga, nestled between lush green hills and winding rivers, everyone believed in love that never broke. The women were proud of their husbands. They laughed when they heard stories of unfaithful men in other villages. Our men are different, they said. The elders told stories about loyalty, saying a man who betrayed his wife would bring bad luck to his family. Lami, a smart and curious woman, saw things others did not. She had been married to Idris for 10 years. He was the perfect husband. He never forgot a special day, never came home late, never got angry. But Lami felt something was wrong. Love was supposed to be full of surprises. Idris was too perfect. Every morning, he kissed her on the forehead at the exact same time. He spoke the same words. He held her in the same way. The scent of wood smoke and dried herbs always clung to his clothes. She started watching the other men. They all acted the same. They laughed the same way, greeted their wives with the same words, left home at the same time, and returned at the same time. The women thought it was love. Lami saw something else, a pattern, a secret. One day, the men returned from a hunting trip. They carried big animals and told stories of their bravery. The village cheered. Idris smiled at Lami, but his eyes were empty. She looked around. Every husband had the same smile, the same perfect love. It was not normal. It was not. At the river, Lami sat with the other women, washing clothes, but she was not thinking about chores. She was thinking about the men. Why do they all act the same? Why do they never change? Her heart beat faster. The village had a secret, and she was going to find out the truth. That night, a traveler came to the village. His name was Obi. He was an old man with sharp eyes, weathered skin, and a bag full of papers. The women whispered about him. The men stood still, their faces tight with worry. Idris grabbed Lami's arm, his grip firm. "Stay away from him," he said. Lami said nothing. Obi found her first. "Your men are lying to you," he said, his voice calm and steady. "Every single one of them." Lami laughed. That was impossible. But Obi did not argue. He only looked at her, as if waiting for her to see the truth for herself. The next morning she did. She listened to Idris, watched the other husbands. She paid attention to the way they walked, the way they spoke, the way they never changed. Even their clothes, always clean and pressed, smelled faintly of the same strange herbs. Her heart sank. Everything she had believed was a lie. The perfect marriages of Umga were nothing more than a trick, a game she had never known she was playing. The night was quiet, the air thick with the scent of earth and moonlight. But Lami's heart pounded with unease. Idris leaned close, his voice gentle. "I will check on the goats," he said, stepping into the darkness. But his voice held something else, something unsteady. Lami's stomach tightened. She had lived beside him for 10 years, yet she barely knew him. Lami and Zara moved like shadows, their breath shallow, hearts pounding. The full moon cast its silver glow upon the forest, lighting the path they should never have walked. The wind carried distant chants, deep and rhythmic, warning of something unnatural ahead. Zara stepped on a dry branch. The crack split the silence. They froze. The whispers from below did not stop. A faint glow seeped through the twisted roots of an ancient tree. Lami touched the bark, feeling the vibrations beneath her palms, calm yet unnaturally warm. There was something below. She brushed away the thick vines, revealing a stone opening hidden beneath the roots. A staircase spiraled downward, swallowed by darkness. A sickening scent curled through the air, burnt herbs, sweat, something metallic, something wrong. Zara hesitated, glancing at Lami. "There may be no way back," she whispered. Lami nodded. "Then we go forward." Their bare feet met the cold stone as they stepped into the abyss. The cavern stretched wide beneath the earth, its walls carved with ancient symbols. Torches flickered, their blue flames casting eerie shadows on the figures below. The men of Umga, their husbands, their elders, knelt in a circle. Their hands clutched wooden chalices, their heads bowed in submission before a massive stone altar draped in crimson cloth. Lami's grip tightened around Zara's wrist. These were not just unfaithful men. This was something far worse. A towering figure stood at the altar, his face concealed behind a carved wooden mask. He raised his arms, and silence fell over the chamber. One by one, the men lifted their chalices and drank. Their bodies shuddered, their eyes rolling back as the liquid took hold. Some laughed, others wept, some convulsed on the ground. The leader's voice rose deep and guttural, chanting in a language lost to time. Lami's stomach twisted. This was not just a gathering. A rustling noise pulled her gaze to the far side of the chamber. Women sat in chains. Their eyes were hollow, their wrists bruised, their dresses torn. These were not the wives of Umga. They were strangers, taken, stolen. Zara's hand flew to her mouth, stifling a gasp. The men they loved, the men they trusted, had done this. One captive woman lifted her head, locking eyes with Lami, a silent plea, a cry for help without words. Lami's entire body tensed. This was not just a betrayal of marriage. This was a crime against humanity. The masked leader stepped forward. His voice thundered through the chamber. "We are the Brotherhood, the keepers of the old ways. Our bond is unbreakable, our desires unchained." The men chanted in unison, their voices blending into a single inhuman sound. They swayed, still under the influence of the potion. This was no mere affair. This was a blood pact, a lifelong oath. Lami's eyes darted across the gathering. Idris was among them. His lips moved with the others. His voice joined their vow. This was not her husband anymore. The ritual reached its climax. The masked leader lifted a curved blade, pressing it to his palm, drawing blood. One by one, the men stepped forward, mirroring the act, sealing their vow in crimson drops upon the stone. The captive women trembled, their fear a living thing in the room. Lami's breath hitched. What came next? She forced herself to remain still, to hold her terror inside. But her nails dug into her palms. They had seen enough. They needed to leave, now. The final oath rang through the cavern. The torches flickered, the flames dancing wildly as if the spirits themselves were awakening. The Brotherhood was complete, and Umga would never be the same again. Panic surged through her, but her feet found their path. She stumbled back, her pulse hammering. The forest around her felt colder, shadows stretching like fingers. I need the truth. I need the truth. Lami and Zara returned from the underground chamber, their hands trembling, their minds spinning. Everything they had believed about Umga was a carefully woven illusion. But Lami saw it now. The invisible chains wrapped around the women's trust. How long had they been blind? How many generations had lived in ignorance, had lived in ignorance? The elders sat in the central hut, their faces carved with age and wisdom, their gazes empty of surprise. Smoke from a dying fire curled through the air, casting fleeting shadows on the mud walls. Lami and Zara stood before them, their voices rising with fury. You knew, Lami accused. You knew all along. The elders exchanged silent glances. There was no panic, no denial, only patience, as if they had been waiting for this moment. This is the way it has always been. One elder finally spoke, his voice like dry leaves in the wind. It is not our place to change it. Lami's breath caught in her throat. They had never protected the women. They had protected the Brotherhood. The truth ran deeper than Lami could have imagined. Every morning, before the sun fully rose, the men drank from a sacred cup. The potion wiped away their memories, cleansing their minds of the night's darkness. By day, they were loving husbands, devoted fathers, respected leaders. By night, they were creatures of ritual, unshackled from guilt, lost to their own desires. Even Idris, none of them knew, not one of them remembered. The potion ensured their loyalty. It ensured they would never feel guilt, never question, never rebel. But what happened to those who refused? Lami knew better now. They had been erased, just like their memories would have been. The women could no longer remain silent. They gathered in the village square, voices sharp with fury, eyes burning with betrayal. The sky above darkened with storm clouds, as if nature itself recoiled from the truth. Tell us the truth, they cried. The men only blinked, confused, lost. Idris stepped forward, searching Lami's face. What are you talking about? His voice was soft, genuine. He knew nothing. None of them did. Lami's anger twisted into something colder, horror. The men stood before them, completely unaware of their own sins. And then she realized the final, terrible truth. If they remembered, they would die. The potion didn't just erase memories. It protected them from something far worse. If the men regained their lost nights, their minds would collapse under the weight of their own actions. But could the women keep living in a lie? Lami stood in the center of the storm, her choice before her: expose the truth and risk destroying the men they loved, or let the lie continue, knowing the cycle would never end. Lami and the women moved through the darkness, their faces painted with sacred symbols, their hands gripping torches and blades. The Brotherhood had ruled for too long. The temple loomed before them, ancient and unmoved. Its walls had stood for lifetimes, sheltering secrets in its stone heart. But the guards were waiting. Zara struck first, her staff cracking against the ribs of a guard. Another lunged at Lami, a spear flashing in the moonlight. She twisted away, her knife finding its mark. All around them, war cries clashed with the ring of steel. They were fighting for more than their freedom. They were fighting for their souls. Inside the temple, Obi stood in the sacred hall, unmoved by the chaos outside. His eyes, sharp with age, burned with a terrible knowing. You think ending me will save you? He laughed, his voice thick with something deeper than arrogance, something close to pity. Lami stood before him, chest heaving, knife tight in her grip. The potion is not just a drug, Obi said. It is a curse woven into your husband's blood. If it stops, they will awaken, but at what cost? Lami faltered. The truth settled in her bones like ice. If the potion burned, the men would remember everything. Decades of erased memories, of sins unseen, would come flooding back. Minds would break under the weight of their own actions. Would they survive it? Would they still be men, or only the shattered remnants of what they had done? Zara stepped forward, the torch burning in her hands. Then let the flames decide, she whispered. The torch flew. Outside, the men fell to the ground. Memories crashed into them like tidal waves. Some clutched their heads, screaming at visions only they could see. Some wept, hands outstretched, as if begging unseen ghosts for mercy. Some ran, tearing into the darkness, unable to face what had been returned to them. The women stood still, watching the fire consume the past, watching the men they had once loved crumble beneath the weight of their own sins. Lami closed her eyes. Nothing would ever be the same. Dawn broke over the smoldering ruins of the temple, but peace did not follow. The morning air was thick with wails and screams. The men had awakened, but they had not returned as the same men. Memories crashed into them like a violent storm. Some clutched their heads, falling to the ground in agony, reliving the horrors they had once forgotten. Others staggered through the village, their lips whispering names of the women they had betrayed. The spell was broken, but the minds of the guilty would never heal. Some men fell to their knees, sobbing at the feet of their wives. They begged for forgiveness, their voices trembling with regret. But no words could erase the past. Others could not bear the weight of their shame. They gathered their belongings and disappeared into the wilderness, choosing exile over the judgment in their wives' eyes. A few turned rageful. They cursed the women for revealing the truth, for tearing away the veil that had kept them safe from their own sins. Their fury boiled over into violence, hands raised in anger. But this time, the women did not cower. The village was no longer a home. It had become a battlefield of broken souls. Lami stood before the ruins of the temple, her face unreadable. She did not cry. She did not smile. She only watched as the chaos unfolded. For generations, the women of Umga had lived in chains, prisoners of a lie they had never chosen. But today, they were free. Some mourned. They clung to what was left of their marriages, to the men who swore they did not know what they had done. Others embraced their new strength. They had spent their lives being loyal to ghosts. Now they would be loyal only to themselves. The elders, once the pillars of the village, now sat in silence, watching their world crumble. Obi was gone. The men who remained had to learn to live with truth. No more potions, no more deception, only the weight of their choices. Some would seek redemption, some would never recover. Lami turned away, walking alongside Zara. There was nothing left to save here. This is not the end, Zara whispered. Lami nodded. No, this is the beginning. The story of Lami and the women of Umga teaches us a powerful lesson. Silence in the face of injustice only strengthens the chains that bind us. Truth, no matter how painful, is the only path to true freedom. Sometimes, breaking the cycle means facing the darkness we've ignored for too long. Thank you for watching my channel. Your support keeps these stories alive. Stay tuned for more eye-opening and captivating videos. See you in the next one. In a beautiful town of Ibaco, where the air smelled of blooming hibiscus and the streets bustled with the laughter of children, twin brothers Idris and Ez began their lives. Idris, with his rich, dark skin, and Ease, with his lighter complexion, grew up in a household where beauty and praise were often reserved for Ease. Their home, a small but lively place with clay walls and a wooden veranda, was filled with the aroma of spices from their mother's cooking. Though they were inseparable, their experiences in life were worlds apart. Idris was a very brilliant child at school, but he felt overshadowed by Ez's effortless charm and the preferential treatment he received from their mother. This difference cast a long shadow over their lives. Their mother, Lami, showed more love for Ease. Each time he wore his new outfit, Lami would say, "Oh, Ease, you look so handsome. You light up the room," but would tell Idris, "You would be more attractive if you were lighter, skinned like your brother." Idris, in his quiet corner, watched this praise with a heavy heart. The corner of their home was lined with books, some worn from repeated reading, where Idris found solace. He often found himself in the background. His skin, darker and richer, seemed to disappear behind Ease's glowing presence. Idris's achievements were often overshadowed by his brother's charm because his mother rarely acknowledged them. One day, Idris came home, excited about winning his art competition at school. He showed his work to his parent, his hands slightly smudged with charcoal from his latest sketch. "This is good, Idris. You need to keep up because you have to work harder to be accepted," said his mother, glancing at it briefly before returning to her knitting. Idris's heart sank as he retreated to his corner, his dreams of recognition melting away. His mother's favoritism was a constant painful reminder of his place. One quiet evening, as the sun cast an amber glow over their small front yard, Ease approached Idris while he was working on his new painting, his fingers steady as he blended the colors carefully. "Idris, are you okay? Mama doesn't always see how amazing you are." "But I do," Easy said with genuine concern, his voice barely above a whisper. Idris managed a small smile, grateful for his brother's support. He dipped his brush into the water, watching the ripples distort his reflection. Idris and Ease attended the same school, a large colonial-era building with ivy creeping up its old walls, but the situation at school mirrored what Idris experienced at home. Teachers and classmates were drawn to Ez's charm. He became very popular at school. Ease's lighter skin earned him admiration and popularity. Idris noticed that the light-skinned boys were praised more, had more friends, got more attention from girls, were the teacher's favorites, and could break rules and not get punished. He faced isolation and bullying from his peers. They called him Midnight because his skin was very dark. During group activities, he was frequently left behind. chosen last with the other dark-skinned boys, or given less important roles, During lunchtime at school, Idris sat on a bench outside, drawing on a paper. The old tree nearby swayed gently, its leaves rustling like whispers. Some boys walked past Idris, but when they saw him sitting there, they told him, "You should stay away from the sun. You're already too dark." And they all laughed. Most times, the popular girls would pretend to be nice to him so they could get closer to his brother, Ease. When Ease's friends visited their home, they would tell Idris to use lighter foundation on his face so he could be more attractive. One of them even said, "You're too handsome for a dark-skinned boy." In Idris's class, there was a very beautiful and popular girl. Her name was Zara. She had a kind smile and gentle eyes, often wearing delicate bracelets that jingled when she moved. Idris admired her from afar, hoping she would notice him. Each time Zara spoke to Idris in class, it was always for his notes, or she would ask him to teach her what she did not understand in class. Zara's friends would always make comments like, "Zara, you should go for Ace. He's so much more your type." She would blush and laugh, but it was clear her attention was focused on Ease, not Idris. Not Idris. Idris tried to suppress his feelings, but he felt rejected. One day Zara was sitting under a tree, absent-mindedly twirling a strand of her hair. Idris summoned up the courage to go talk to her. As soon as he said, "Hello, Zara," she interrupted him. "What does your brother like? How can I make him be my friend?" she asked, her eyes bright with excitement. This was so hurtful. He turned around and walked away, his heart feeling heavier than ever. Idris's best friend, Obi, a loyal companion who had been with him through thick and thin, had known him since childhood. They often spent afternoons together by the river, skipping stones and talking about life. Idris had quietly harbored feelings for him for a very long time, but Obi seemed only interested in the light-skinned boys at school. Idris watched him date several boys who were often mean and rude to him. One day, Obi came to Idris's house, looking visibly upset. He sat down on the couch, burying his face in his hands. The scent of freshly baked bread lingered in the air, but neither of them seemed to notice. "Idris, I'm tired. I'm so tired of being treated like I'm not good enough," he said. Idris sat beside him, his heart aching for him. "What happened?" he asked, his voice soft and gentle. "I was with Lami. She treated me like I was nothing. I have been giving her all my lunch money. She used me, and today she dumped me." Idris's heart ached for him. "You deserve so much better. Don't let one person's bad behavior make you feel unworthy," Idris said, placing a reassuring hand on his friend's shoulder. Obi nodded, wiping his tears. "Thank you, Idris. You always know how to make me feel better. You're my best friend. I just want a partner like the other guys in my group." "Everyone has someone for the dance except me," he complained, looking down at his worn-out sneakers. "It looks like all the girls are taken, and there is none left for me," Idris said, his tone carrying a trace of sorrow. "But I'm here. I have no boyfriend and no partner for the dance," Idris said, summoning up the courage to say that, his voice barely above a whisper. "What? No, you're just Idris. You're my friend. If I go with you, people will think you're my girlfriend, and I will not have any more chance to have any girl as a girlfriend. I need a real girlfriend, not you." Idris's heart was so broken. His friend, Obi didn't see him as desirable or worthy of being a boyfriend. The soft glow of the evening sun seeped through the curtains as he excused himself from Obi and went into his room to cry for a while, muffling his sobs with his pillow. Despite the lack of recognition from their mother and the outside world, Idris had one steadfast supporter, his father, Mr. Dyke. Unlike Lami, their mother, Mr. Dyke, saw and valued Idris's talent and potential. One day, Idris came home bursting with excitement. He had won first place in school. He ran to his dad, Mr. Dyke, who was reading the newspaper at the kitchen table, a steaming cup of tea beside him. "Papa, look! I won first place," Idris said, his eyes shining with hope. Mr. Dyke looked up from his paper, his face breaking into a proud smile. "That's wonderful. I knew you were special," he said, giving him a warm hug. "Your talent is truly remarkable." Idris's heart swelled with pride and relief. His father's encouragement was a balm to his wounded spirit. He always took the time to notice his achievements, no matter how small, and his support for him was a constant source of strength. "You bring so much joy into our lives. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise," his dad said. Idris's eyes filled with tears. He had longed for his mother's approval, but his father's unwavering support was a precious comfort. "Thank you, Papa. It means so much to me." One day, while walking past the kitchen, Idris overheard a conversation between his parents. His mother's voice was filled with frustration as she said, "Izzy's lighter skin seemed to open more doors for him. I just wish Idris's talents were recognized more." Mr. Dyke's response was calm but firm. "Lami, say, our son is very brilliant. We need to support him even if others don't see it. He's going to shine no matter how long it takes. He's going to shine no matter how long it takes." After graduating high school, Idris looked for a job in the fashion industry. He faced a lot of rejection and prejudice. His designs were so good, but big brands only wanted to buy his designs without giving him credit for them or allowing him to model his designs in the fashion show. He was so frustrated. The city streets buzzed with activity, yet Idris felt like a shadow walking through the crowd, unseen and unappreciated. One evening, after a particularly tough day, Idris sat at his desk, exhausted. His brother, Eza, knocked on the door and entered, the room dimly lit by the lamp on Idris's table. "Idris, you have been working so hard. Maybe you need a break," he suggested. Concern etched on his face. Idris looked up, his eyes tired but determined. "I cannot afford to take a break. I have to make it." Iz hugged him gently. "I believe in you, Idris. You've always been stronger than you know." Despite the discouraging environment, Idris persevered. He continued to work hard, often staying late into the night to refine his designs. The quiet hum of his sewing machine became his companion, his sketches piling up beside him. These helped him publish his designs on his social media account. Soon, people started seeking him out to make their clothes for them. He was exceptional. As he made more clothes for people, he got more recognition, and more famous people and celebrities began to ask him to make clothes for them. He poured his heart into the designs, blending traditional African elements with modern aesthetics. The companies that rejected him lost most of their famous clients to Idris. He launched his fashion line and organized his own fashion show. All his celebrity clients and famous friends came out to support him. With his new connections, his brand grew and was known across Africa. One day, he met Obi at an event. The music was lively, and laughter filled the air. Obi was so happy to see Idris. I have been following your work, Idris. You've done amazing things, and it's inspiring to see how much you've made a difference. Thank you so much, Obi. Idris responded to him, his smile polite but reserved. After the event, Obi asked him for his house address and phone number. I would like to take you out on a date. But Idris smiled at him and politely turned him down. Idris was so accomplished. With his new connections, he decided to help his community. He launched a campaign to build in his high school, where he employed the best teachers for fashion designing, art, and other creative skills. All his celebrity friends and wealthy friends donated graciously. He organized competitions where he gave out scholarships to winners. During the launch, the school asked him to give a speech. He arrived with his entourage and his brother. He was the most accomplished. After his speech, all the boys and girls that used to look down on him went closer to look down on him, went closer to reintroduce themselves and seek connections with him. They all wanted to be his friend and asked to exchange phone numbers. He smiled and politely declined, giving them his phone number. In the car, his brother laughed and said, Idris, you're so popular now in school. Yeah, I can see that. They all love me now because of what they can get from me, he replied. They both laughed and drove off. His mother, Lami, who was so proud of what Idris had become, hosted a family reunion, invited relatives and friends from his past so she could show off her famous son and all his achievements. The house was filled with chatter, the aroma of delicious food wafting through the air. After the party, she spoke with Idris. Please, Idris, forgive my ignorance. I am sorry that I did not give you the love and support you deserved. Idris was happy for his mother's apology, and that gave him closure. They both began to work towards healing their relationship. The story of Idris teaches us a valuable lesson. Never underestimate or look down on others based on superficial traits like appearance. True worth lies in one's talents, perseverance, and kindness. Those who once ignored or belittled Idris later sought his favor when he became successful, proving that life is unpredictable. Always treat people with respect and kindness, because no one knows what the future holds. Thank you for watching my channel. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring and thought-provoking stories. See you in the next video. Once upon a time, there lived a very beautiful girl named Kara. Kara lived with her parents in a very small village, surrounded by lush green hills and a sparkling river that flowed through the valley. Her mother was once the most beautiful woman in the village, who was the delight of many, as all the eligible bachelors in the village wanted her to be their bride. Kara's father was considered the luckiest man in the village to have married Kara's mother, as not even the prince of the village was able to win her heart. Kara grew up to be more beautiful than her mother, with long flowing hair and a radiant smile, and was admired by all the maidens in the village. One day, Kara was returning home from the stream, carrying a clay pot filled with water, when she saw a giant snake staring directly at her. She was terrified, as she had never seen a snake that big in her life. The snake gently approached her, and Kara screamed at the top of her voice, shutting her eyes in fear. By the time she opened her eyes, the snake had gone, and Kara took to her heels as she ran back home in fear. Kara got home and told her mother what happened, and her mother comforted her, as she was glad that nothing had happened to her daughter. As days turned into weeks, strange occurrences began to take place. Kara would often find herself in dangerous situations only to be miraculously saved by the snake. Once, Kara was about to step on a venomous scorpion hidden under dried leaves when the snake appeared out of nowhere, hissing loudly to alert her. Kara caught sight of the dangerous scorpion and the snake hissing in front of her. She was so frightened and returned home. The thought of the snake could not leave her mind, and Kara wondered what the snake wanted with her. As night came, Kara retired to bed and had a very terrifying dream where she saw herself as a snake, hissing and moving next to the snake she had always seen in the bushes. She woke up terrified as she ran to her mother's room to tell her all about her horrifying dream. Her mother comforted her and assured her that it was only a dream. The next evening, Kara went to the forest to collect some firewood, humming a tune her mother had taught her, when the snake appeared in front of her. Filled with fear, she ran a short distance and noticed that the tree branch above where she was just standing fell to the ground, missing her by mere inches. Kara turned to look at the snake and noticed that it slithered away quietly without harming her. In a state of confusion, Kara decided to follow the snake, as it was evident that the snake was there to protect her and not to harm her. She followed the snake quietly as it guided her to its cave. Kara lacked the courage to approach the snake, so she ran back home in fear. Little did she know that someone had trailed them from behind when they heard her scream. A maiden in the village named Mira had heard Kara's loud scream and rushed to check what it was. When she saw Kara and the huge snake staring at each other from a distance, filled with curiosity, Mira followed Kara and the snake, as she wondered what connection Kara had with the snake, Mira then decided to spread rumors in the village, saying that Kara had some dark powers that made her control snakes. She told villagers how a snake in the forest saved Kara from a fallen branch. Mira's gossip quickly spread through the village like wildfire. Whispers and hushed conversations erupted, with some villagers becoming suspicious of Kara. They wondered if Kara was in alliance with dark forces, whilst others believed it was simply a desperate attempt by Mira to discredit Kara out of jealousy. This, however, did not deter the young men in the village who had intentions of seeking Kara's hand in marriage. Kara was by far the most beautiful maiden in the village, and the men were all blinded by her beauty. A young man named Ikenna came to ask for Kara's hand in marriage. Ikenna was a very handsome farmer with a great track record in the village. He met Kara at the last concluded festival, where she had danced gracefully, and since then they had been spending time getting to know one another. Kara had rejected all the marriage proposals from other eligible bachelors in the village, as Ikenna promised to marry her. Ikenna met with Kara's parents and family and declared his intention to marry Kara, and a date for the marriage introduction was set. Kara fantasized about her life with Ikenna, as he was everything she had ever dreamed of. The day of the marriage introduction arrived, and Kara looked absolutely beautiful in her traditional attire, adorned with beads and flowers. Everyone gathered to witness the marriage ceremony when suddenly the huge snake slithered into their midst, scaring everyone away, including Ikenna, who never spoke to Kara again. This broke Kara, as the whole village avoided her, believing she had some connection with dark forces. Kara ran away from her village to live with her mother's best friend, Nara, who was her godmother. living in the neighboring village. This was a great escape for Kara, as she could no longer stand all the happenings in her village. Kara spoke to her godmother about the giant snake and how the snake